It was very much in my mind to have my first picture be a genre picture. I loved film noir. I loved particularly Out of the Past and Asphalt Jungle and those movies. So it was a sexy movie, and it gave me an opportunity to do a couple things that I wanted to do for the first movie. The language of film noir was very extravagant.
Most men are little boys.
Maybe you should drink at home.
Stylized.
Too quiet.
Maybe you shouldn't dress like that.
This is a blouse and skirt. I don't know what you're talking about.
I felt that I could have a lot of fun with this kind of extravagant language.
You shouldn't wear that body.
The other thing that I had loved about the film noir was the Baroque freedom of the camera. And I thought, this genre is going to give me an opportunity in my first film to try a lot of things, because I don't know if I'll ever get to make a second film. And I wanted to make sure that the first one had a lot of fun associated with it. It had taken me a long time to start selling screenplays. Then I sold 2 very quickly, and that led me to George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, and I wound up writing Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Empire Strikes Back. And what happened was Alan Ladd Jr., who was involved with the Star Wars series, was running 20th Century Fox at that time. It was offering me things to write, and I said, I'm not writing for anybody anymore. Now I'm going to direct. He said, well, what do you want to direct? And I said, I'm going to write something for myself, and here it is. And I told him the Body Heat story. When I was in the middle of writing it, he left the studio. Luckily, Laddie, as Alan Ladd Jr. was called, had started his own company, the Ladd Company, and he said, come over to Warner Brothers, where the Ladd Company was, and I'll make it there. But you need to have a sponsor. So I went to George Lucas. He loved the script. He said, I will sponsor you, I will stand up for you. And he did an amazing thing that I didn't know about for years, which was he went to Laddie and he said, if Larry goes over budget, and it was a very tiny budget, you can use my fee for the overages, which is an incredibly generous thing without ever telling me, and it's one of the great things that someone has done for me.
I shouldn't have let you come.
You're not so tough after all, are you?
No, I'm weak.
The 70s was a time when acting in America was exploding, and there were some stars, but a generation was passing. And at the very moment that I was casting Body Heat, there was a whole generation of actors, Bill Hurt and on, who were coming out of New York and doing great work. These were unknown people who were all getting an opportunity at that time, and I wanted the best people I could find. I wanted to find people that the American public did not know. I wanted them to enter this story as though it were a real story, and discover these people for the first time, and settled on Bill.
You can stand there with me if you want, but you'll have to agree not to talk about the heat.
I did Alternate States and I did Eyewitness. Then came Body Heat. And Body Heat, when I opened the script, I thought this is the flawless script. And so we met. I had heard Larry was a first-time director, which always makes you a little nervous. And we talked for 6 hours about this thing, about how great it was and how impossible it was going to be to live up to that.
I'm a married woman.
Meaning what?
Meaning I'm not looking for company.
And you should have said I'm a happily married woman.
That's my business.
Kathleen, she was exactly what I was looking for, some brand new face with some unusual physical qualities and the sound, perfect sound for film noir.
I was doing theater. I just come back from Canada where I'd been doing The Seagull, and I got back to New York. And frankly, they wouldn't see me for the part. They wouldn't let me in. They felt I had no film credit. About 4 months later, I think, I was out in Los Angeles auditioning for a different film. And Wally Nacita was the casting director for Body Heat in LA, and they had not cast the role. So she called me in, and I read for her. So then she set up a reading with Larry and the producer, Fred Gallo.
There were certain vocal similarities to Lauren Bacall, which didn't hurt her. She had these incredible legs. There's a moment when she gets out of the car and stubs out her cigarette, with her high heel. And She had the legs to pull it off.
And I thought I did well with that, and then I got back to my hotel and there was a message, come back tomorrow. So I came back and read again the next day. And I wanted to show a complete contrast from the day before. The day before I'd been all dressed up with my highest heels and my tightest skirt and all that thing. So then second day I wore t-shirt and jeans, you know. And I kind of just stretched out on this couch and read what he'd given me. And there was this quiet at the end, and I looked up and Larry said, I never thought I'd hear that the way I hear it in my head. And I thought, well, that's great, you know.
He's coming up tomorrow. I can't stand the thought of him. He's small and mean and weak.
So then they set up a screen test with Bill.
We had tested lots of people, and they were good and they were interesting, but there was nothing like when Bill and Kathleen tested together.
I want to see the chimes.
You want to see the chimes?
I want to hear them.
That's all. If I let you, then that's all.
I'm not looking for trouble.
And then we had to wait. I finally called up Larry, and then they told me that they wanted Bill and me to do the film. I think at that point I had to go in and have a meeting with the executives at the studio. And I remember this room was white on white on white, a white sofa, white tables, white carpets, and a big ashtray in the middle filled with cigarette butts. And one of them said, you know, can you be funny or something? And I sort of said, oh, sure. And I threw my script on the table, which knocked the ashtray, flying ashes and butts all over this white carpet. And I was on my hands and knees trying to pick all this up, and they started laughing. And they said, yes, you're funny. Thank you.
This is Mr. Racine. I'm sorry, I don't know your first name.
Ned.
Edmund Walker, nice to meet you.
I wanted everyone in the movie to have something worth doing, and so I tried to write the arsonist character as an interesting character.
Anytime you try a decent crime, you got 50 ways you can fuck up. If you think it's 25 of them, then you're a genius. And you ain't no genius. You remember who told me that?
The cop,
Always starts happening in weather like this. When it gets hot, people try to kill each other.
the woman who runs the diner,
I know some people who'll be dead if we don't get a break soon.
the DA.
You know, that Edmund Walker was a bad guy, and the more I find out about him, the happier I am he's dead. I figure it's a positive thing for the world.
I thought they were all good parts, and the man that is the victim. I wanted him to be an interesting character, not what we think he's going to be. Let everyone surprise us with their humanity. So I've tried to do that throughout. The next 9 pictures I directed, too. I like to have them rich and full of believable people. I met lots of people for the Oscar and the Lowenstein part, and I just loved J.A. Preston. I thought he had all that kind of moral authority that the character had to have. He is the one character in the movie who just has a code that he absolutely lives by.
Ned, you've messed up before and you'll mess up again. It's your nature.
And Ted had done only Onion Field. It was the only thing I had seen him in, and I just thought he was terrific.
I had a dream last night so boring it woke me up. I was afraid to go back to sleep.
I do remember that you could take the script that I auditioned with and go to the film right now, Body Heat, in a theater, and you could conduct it like a score. But truly, it was like somebody hired me. You know, thank God. What are we making? What are we doing? How exciting. I don't think I understood what I was getting involved in.
I think I've underestimated you, Ned. I don't know why it took me so long. You started using your incompetence as a weapon.
My defense was evolving, and you guys got scared.
My then wife and I invited Kathleen, and because they were all East Coast, and I lived in Los Angeles, Kathleen and Bill to our house on Hesby Street in North Hollywood, and there was a little backyard, a little pool, and my wife and Kathleen were kind of sunbathing or something, and Bill and I were, I don't know, being athletic, doing something, swimming, doing, you know, whatever. And at one point he said, "Do you want to do the trust exercise?" And I'm going, okay. I'm probably in my, you know, Speedo. And I went, yes, I do. Because this is a very serious actor, you know. Juilliard trained. Yes, I'll do the trust exercise. And he reached down and grabbed my balls and said, "Now you do the same to me." And it was like, okay.
I looked at him in the eye and said, "You trust me?" He goes, "I don't know, should I?" The idea being, are you going to check your guns at the door, your ego, your competitive nature, and share something? You're going to drop your defensiveness, or you're going to trust in some way.
Nevertheless, it was quite, you know, it was quite strange to do this. I guess the idea was to see who would go, you know, "Oh, no, I couldn't possibly do that," or I don't know, I don't quite know. But I trusted. A lot of therapy since then, and I'm basically okay now.
I wish I knew what to tell you, Ned, but I don't have any good ideas. I'll see you.
Hey, lady, you want to fuck?
I had been on a soap opera, and they looked for an actress who would be incredibly similar to me to take over the role when I wanted to leave. You know, they asked me to come and look at these tapes of these 5 women, and I thought Kim Zimmer was the closest to me. So when Larry said, "Now we have to find a woman, you know, an actress who could be mistaken for you," I said, "Well, I know one." You know, she took over my old role on the soap opera, and so we called her up, and so that's actually how we found Kim.
You two have fun now.
Fortunately, Larry Kasdan does believe in rehearsal, in really a good 4 weeks of rehearsing.
And there was never any sense of going for a particular result in a scene. I think he was so confident in the material, we would just rehearse and play and rehearse and play, so that you become so familiar with the material in an organic way, and you're not trying to shoot for results. That's a wonderful thing for an actor.
My background being all theater, I really didn't know any other way to work. So it was exciting to be doing film, but having the full underpinning, the structure of rehearsing it like a play, so that we knew just where we were, no matter what conjunction the scenes were in, no matter out of context or before or after, we knew where they fit into our performances.
Larry always rehearsed. I mean, we were allowed to rehearse, and we rehearsed all our films. Tourist and Chill and I Love You to Death, we rehearsed all those films. And that's where you can bring consideration, you know, to the work.
Oh, you can't buy me. I don't come cheap.
People ask me, you know, what a great idea. Was that your idea to dance?
Why does he do that?
That's pretty good. That's the weird part.
You can pick up the script and, you know, it says, "Does Fred Astaire dance?" Da, 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 da. And everything was choreographed beforehand. Well, Larry hired a choreographer, and we rehearsed this dance scene on the dock for about 2 weeks. And I had worked on in a studio, you know, hardwood floor, mirrors, and a dance bar. So I had really gotten it down. And I went out there, and all of a sudden, this hardwood floor, mirrors, dance bar studio was not there, and it was this fishing dock that was covered in fish grease and heads and oil. So the thing was completely slick and very rough and rugged. And, you know, my little perfect dance went flying out the window. And I was struggling not to just, you know, do the splits and slip.
I was very excited by the possibility of dealing with the actors. I had wanted to be an actor, I had done some acting, and I wasn't very good at it, and so I gave it up and concentrated on writing and directing. But I loved actors, I still do. I'm amazed by what they can do. To me, they're like great athletes, which is, they look like a normal person sort of when you're in the room with them, but when they start doing the thing that they do well, it's magical.
Yeah, I figured that honest lawyers didn't make very much, and the other kind were too slimy for me. Now, I'd rather be upfront about shafting somebody.
Edmund, really, it's Mr. Racine's profession.
No, that's all right. I don't like it much.
Alan Ladd Jr., who was so supportive of this movie, and we had one moment of disagreement in the whole movie, which was that when we were in rehearsal, I got a message that Laddie wanted Bill Hurt to shave his mustache. He hated the mustache, and I was dumbfounded. It had never occurred to me that he would have an opinion about that. Laddie said to me, it makes him look sleazy, which it does.
We'll sue those reckless bastards dry. Oh, excuse my language.
Conversation ended, and I started getting calls from Paula Weinstein, who was the executive assigned to me. At that time, she said, you know, Larry, Laddie has been so supportive of you, and he's given you everything you want, you know, in this small movie, and he's asking you to shave that mustache, and you better do it. And I said, you know, Paula, I agree with you. He's been wonderful, but I really believe this is right. And so she said, well, when we see those first dailies, the mustache better be gone. They were in Los Angeles, I was in Florida. And we hung up, and I didn't do it. And we sent in our first dailies, and he had the mustache, which I thought was exactly right. And we never heard another word. It taught me a very important lesson about just going ahead with the thing you really believe in and not being afraid.